Get those lungs.
What am I watching again? Spring break is quickly approaching. Allow me to suggest the ultimate spring break movie to kick it off. Where the Boys Are. Ultimate's a matter of opinion. 1960s Where the Boys Are stars Dolores Hart, Paula Prentiss, George Hamilton, Jim Hudson, Frank Gorshin, and Connie Francis. And yeah, let's see what we've got. Merritt, sick literally and figuratively with the cold, tells Tuggle that she is not going with the group to Fort Lauderdale for spring break. Tuggle asks their friend Melanie to try and convince Merritt during their next class together.
Which class is it? Courtship and marriage.
That's a class? Who is that professor? Clay Walsh from Old Fashioned? No way, he'd have to be alone in a room with all those girls.
I should like to know what making out means, and so would the class.
Well, that's what happens when you earn your doctorate of courtship and marriage from Clay Walsh's School of Crazy Theories.
Baking out is what used to be called decking. Before that, it was petting. Going back to early American days, it was also known as bundling. It's all the same game.
When you think about it, the term making out doesn't actually make any sense. If you want to make something, you usually got to take things a step further. Granted, some people probably consider making out to include that further step, but it still is kind of a weird term if you think about it. The term bundling at least makes a little more sense. I mean, the two people together kind of look like a bundle. Bring back bundling! When it's her opinion that it's okay for a girl to
play house before marriage.
Merritt is sent to the dean's office. I'm pretty sure most of us girls have played house before marriage many times. I usually had to play the spinster aunt. The dean tells Merritt that her grades suck despite her having a high IQ. Most of the time when that happens, it's because the student is not being challenged enough in class. That could be because you're offering stupid courses like courtship and marriage. Later, in Florida,
We're going to Lauderdale for one reason. To meet boys.
I'm here to see the International Swimming Hall of Fame. Let's think about this sign for a moment. At what point do you know that you are definitely not making it to Fort Lauderdale? I mean, you have up until the moment you die to find a way there. How do you know you're not killing yourself too quickly? I'm just saying don't shoot everyone until you know that the government is definitely not pulling up a few seconds later, indicating that they are taking care of the creatures in the mist. Wait a minute, I think I jumped movies. What am I watching again?
You had just saved the life of T.B. Thompson, junior class, Michigan State.
And aren't we glad we did?
Tuggle, suppose I give you a bang on the pipes and we lift a few cans together.
Those girls won't learn what that phrase means until Courtship and Marriage 201.
Two kids from Ohio State came all the way down here, and now they can't afford the rates. So I was thinking maybe we could have them stay with us.
Girls, I assume.
Don't be funny. What do you think, Mayor?
You know, that really wouldn't be that funny of a question anymore. Times certainly have changed, I guess.
Try to avoid arresting anyone.
I repeat, times certainly have changed for certain individuals.
After we pay for the room and the gasoline home, we each wind up with $18 for 9 days. What's a steak pack?
Well, if any of us ever gets invited out to dinner, we order steak, we eat half, and we bring home the rest.
Angie, you've got a criminal mind.
That's not criminal, that's just being smart. What you really should do is order steak, eat half, and on the way home rob a convenience store so you actually do have a criminal mind. Maybe I just do. Melanie is already getting friendly with some college boys who tell her they are from Yale, so the others head to the beach.
Where's the beach? According to this, it's across the street.
Tuggle runs into TV and they go to the elbow room for a drink where TV hands Tuggle a fake ID.
My name's Kitty Gruder. I'm 21 years old, and I live in Macon, Georgia.
Here comes our Byronic hero, our suave gentleman, our Edward Cullen, and just as quickly he's gone. All right then. Melanie somehow made her way to the beach as well with Dill. Dear God, Merritt, Tuggle, TV, Dill, Kitty, what depraved soul wrote this?
Why don't we cut out for a while, find some nice beach built for two?
I think that beach was built for two, but there's still 3,000 people on it. Merritt and Angie sneak tea bags and crackers into a local diner while this man awkwardly stares at Merritt and, in a romantic gesture, offers her a piece of bread with ketchup. Our hero.
Would you like smiley sauce with that?
Shut up, Kevin Spacey. TV keeps trying to talk about sex, and Tuggle keeps avoiding it, and that's why she lets him kiss her. Okay.
Are you a good girl, Tuggle?
By good girl, he of course means, who's a pretty little puppy? If he wanted a little more action, he should have picked up Melanie, who apparently is, let's just say, no longer a good girl. High IQ or not, I feel like most of us can count faster than this. There's now one more girl in the room with them, because why not? Spring break, 1960, woo!
A sophomore from Swanson Hall. She met this real nice boy, and the next thing they were married.
She met this boy here in March, and they got married in October, 2 jumps ahead of the obstetrician.
The obstetrician wanted to marry her? Tuggle vows to stay chaste while in Lauderdale, and that's when TV calls. Well, we all have dreams. Melanie goes down to Dill's room the next day and finds no Dill but roommates who offer to be stand-ins. Once again, cute moody guy snubs Angie and stares creepily at Merritt. They decide to go for cocktails, and Merritt, like a good friend, leaves Angie with her Russian vocab book.
I've got to give up hockey.
Creepy stranger's name is Ryder Smith. At this point, I'd give $2 for a John or a Mary or even an Ethel. Merritt and Ryder decide they are both terribly sophisticated and then leave to go swimming at Ryder's grandfather's house. Make that air quotes, house.
You know, you sound like you've been around quite a bit.
That's the classier version of saying you sound like a slut. The next day, Basil and his band almost run over the girls with their truck.
Please, we do not want applause.
No problem.
Let's keep things as unfrantic and cerebral as possible.
You're in a movie called Where the Boys Are. I think that Cerebral ship has sailed. After the other two turn him down, Basil finally asks Angie out.
How do you get through to a musician? Maybe by being another musician.
Oh no, are there gonna be musical numbers? I should have known with Connie Francis hanging around.
Sex is, well, it's part of personal relations. Like shaking hands or making sure you catch a person's name when you're introduced.
So she brings that idea back to school, gets sent to the dean again, they threaten to kick her out, and we wind up back in Fort Lauderdale. This movie is an endless cycle. Tuggle and Merritt are home early the night Melanie stumbles in drunk off her ass.
Not a grasshopper that hops, Mary. A grasshopper in a glass, it's green.
Jolly good idea.
I'm in love with Franklin, and Franklin's in love with me.
Don't you think Dill would have been a much better choice to be pickled with? An at times incongruent conversation takes place between Merritt and a hungover Melanie by the pool about basically Melanie now playing house a lot. Melanie blames Merritt and her argument with the professor in their courtship and marriage class. Oh, here it is.
You don't have to be a politician.
No?
You can change it all with a sunny disposition, so be happy.
Okay, I'm happy. Has the government changed yet? The sleazy music's playing. Must be Melanie in that car.
Does everyone feel the same way we do? Are we very special?
Oh dear God, moving on. Bad news, they say. There's only 2 days left of spring break. Wait, where's the bad news? Melanie says she is staying in for the night. We'll see how long that lasts. Sure enough, she calls Franklin's room and asks to see him. He says to meet him at the same place. At the club, TV gets drunk and Basil flings his glasses across the room. Yet they somehow wind up under the table where someone had stepped on them. Physics is a funny thing. TV, in his drunken stupor, decides to join the underwater sea nymph act, despite the fact that
I can't swim.
And gets tangled in the seaweed ladder. Naturally, this means all of our leads and half of the club wind up in the tank.
What's going on?
You're not alone, Basil.
That's what interrupt me!
Remember before cell phones when this was an option?
I think I can straighten out this whole matter in no time.
So could I by stopping the movie, yet here I sit letting it play on. Are we near the end yet?
I wish I was dead.
That's a no, isn't it? Later at a beach party, TV is getting chummy with the sea nymph Lola. Ryder and Merritt go through a will they, won't they scene, and Tuggle tries to get TV to leave with her. He gets angry and tells her to leave him alone. You could say she turned the TV off. I would promise to stop with the puns, but who am I kidding? They might not stop. Melanie answers the hotel room door to find not Franklin, but Dill. This is when Melanie apparently realizes she is just being passed around, and I think this next scene is telling us that Dill raped her, but it was the early 60s, so they don't flat out say it. Tuggle can't understand most of what the depressed Melanie is saying on the phone, but she does get out of her that she is in Silver Beach. Tuggle fetches Merritt and Ryder, and the three run off to find Melanie. Shouldn't be too hard, as she is walking down the middle of the busiest street in town.
Blame all of you who think of a girl as something cheap and common, just put here for your personal kicks.
Look, she got mixed up with the wrong people.
Have you met any right ones lately?
Not since the beginning of this film, no. Ryder storms off and Melanie tells her that she wishes she had died and wants to go home to her parents. And worst news of all, Dill and Franklin aren't from Yale.
I want you to know, Tug, I wasn't anyplace else tonight.
The backseat of a car doesn't count as a place, right? The next day, Tuggle, TV, Basil, and Angie head back north. As Merritt pouts on the beach, Ryder strolls over and says he will drive Melanie and Merritt home because love. And to cap it all off, he invites her to his school dances and graduation. The end. So why is this in the dumpster? What it really boils down to is the fact that this film is incredibly dated. This is one of those films that was controversial and, dare I say, important at the time it came out. It may not have been that well known, but we all know that the most popular films aren't always the important ones. This film's main controversy was its blatant depiction of premarital sex. Hell, of sex at all, especially from the female perspective. Up until this point, married couples on TV were never shown sleeping in the same bed, though men could make the occasional innuendo or sexist comment. However, women themselves were always displayed as pure of thought and only interested in sex when their husband proposed it to them. The idea of the female as the sexually aggressive one was unheard of on the most part. However, it's around this era that films started trickling out that show sex as not so taboo and even from the female perspective. Alas, people are a slow-moving, unintelligent lot and apparently need to be eased into things. In 1956, the film version of Tennessee Williams' play Baby Doll was released, and the preceding advertisements alone tell you that it's more blatant than many in the era, to the point that this ad got the film a denouncement from the Catholic Legion of Decency. Yeah, that was a thing. Because of this denouncement and the film eventually being banned in several countries, it seemed a more subtle approach was needed to bring female sexuality to the forefront as not a bad thing. Among the films released at this time was Where the Boys Are. You see, we could bring the idea forward while still giving the men the misogyny they're used to. And there's plenty of blatant and subtle misogyny to go around in this film, from it being socially acceptable that the men are more sexually experienced, to the bartender asking Tuggle but not TV for an ID card, to playing up Angie being the captain of the girls' hockey team as a deterrent for attracting a man. However, mixed in with that is the coming of age, hey, women can and should be allowed to be sexual creatures too message. The film still depicts the girls as mostly good girls, and then there's the whole Melanie the slut got run over by a car and was physically and mentally destroyed because of her actions. So, was female sexual empowerment being depicted as a good thing or a bad thing? Was this film maybe even a response to the coming of age film surge and trying to warn people against it? Or was it subtly bringing it to the surface for discussion, merely trying to plant the seed of the idea in people's heads for future growth? Whatever the intention, this film's message must have done a number on Dolores Hart. 3 years later, she left Hollywood and became a Benedictine nun. She's now Mother Superior at the Abbey of Regina Laudis in Connecticut. I'm not kidding about that. Well, this film probably had nothing to do with it, but it's still kind of an interesting tidbit of information. Yeah, it might be a little bit screwed up, but go ahead and check out this film. It's at least kind of amusing.
Did you hear me, Angie?
I hear ya.
A grasshopper in a glass, it's green.
What's going on? What's going on?
Someone stepped in my friend's glasses. Now, what sort of an establishment are you running here?